The American frontier, also known as the Old West or the Wild West, encompasses the geography, history, folklore, and culture which has captured the American imagination, if not the world. Stories abound about cowboys, bandits, gunslingers, and lawmen, but there were another group that should have received far more attention. One such group are the Buffalo Soldiers, and in particular, the U.S. Army Indian Scouts. How did a former slave become one of America's greatest heroes? What did he do to gain the respect and fear from his fellow white soldiers and Native Americans alike? Why were men like him important to the history of the Old West?
Hello, I'm Colin Heaton, former soldier, Marine Corps Scout Sniper, history professor, historian, and book author, and we will answer these questions and other issues on this segment of Forgotten History.
Pompay Factor was a former slave and son of captive mixed Black Seminole chief Hardy Factor and an unknown Biloxi Indian woman, as the Seminoles, like most Native American tribes, welcomed runaway slaves and were not discriminatory. Following the Second Seminole War of 1835 to 1842, the last major campaign to remove Native Americans from lands desired by the federal government raged in Florida and southern Georgia. The second campaign concluded when the tribes were moved west and sent into slavery in Arkansas, then moved to Texas, much like the Cherokee during the Trail of Tears. Pompey was born into slavery in 1849, following his father, many runaway slaves being returned to slavery, and the Seminoles being placed onto reservations. Many tried to escape, and some successfully did so, but the rebellious Hardy escaped with his family to Mexico and to freedom. Pompey received a Jesuit education, was well read in Latin, Greek, and spoke Seminole, English, and Spanish. When he turned 16, the Civil War had ended, and slavery was over. He returned to Texas and enlisted in the U.S. Army on August 16, 1870, and was assigned as a private with the detachment of Seminole Negro Indian Scouts supporting the 24th Infantry, an all-black regiment known as Buffalo Soldiers, based at Fort Clark, Texas. As a scout, he performed reconnaissance duties in West Texas for the Army, tracking the movements of Comanches, Apaches, Kiowa, and other Native Americans who refused to go onto the reservations. So adept was he at tracking, even at night, he was appointed Chief Scout under the command of Lieutenant John Lapham Bullis. Pompey Factor's courage and skill would be displayed many times during the Red River War of 1874 and 1875. The Comanches in particular, who wanted to kill him, also respected him as a fellow warrior. They gave him the nickname Stalking Shadow because he could never be captured, but always knew how to find them. In April 1875, Pompey Factor, Sergeant John Ward, and Trooper Isaac Payne, along with their commander Lieutenant Bullis, were tracking an Apache group that had attacked a stagecoach, stolen horses, and due to Pompey's great tracking skills, on April 18th, they found approximately 30 Apaches driving a herd of 75 stolen military horses towards Mexico. Rather than attack, they continued tracking the Apaches to confirm their actual number, and on the early pre-dawn morning of April 26th, they caught up with the band at Eagle's Nest Crossing just before reaching the Pecos River. Using stealth during the night, the three Seminole scouts recovered the horses and were quietly making good their escape, but then the Apaches discovered the horses gone and a furious pursuit began. The rest of the 24th Regiment was several miles behind them. The four men were cut off without support. They were on their own. The soldiers saw that the hostile force coming for them were also armed with rifles, so they abandoned the horses and set up a hasty defense. The fighting erupted at Eagle's Nest Crossing near present-day Langtree, Texas, and Ward had his rifle butt shattered by bullets, and Lieutenant Bullis was shot in the leg and unable to mount his horse. Low on ammunition, the decision was made to retreat fast and return to the main force. Factor and Payne mounted their horses to make their escape. Sergeant Ward noticed that the wounded Lieutenant Bullis could not mount his frightened horse, so all three men dismounted. While Ward helped the lieutenant onto his horse, Factor and Payne alone held off the concentrated attacks, which lasted for almost 2 hours until the fighting became hand-to-hand. Their Spencer rifles, when out of ammunition, became clubs. Knives became the weapons of choice. Ward, Payne, and Factor killed over a dozen Apaches in their first attack. The Apaches retreated, reorganized, and then broke off into two groups to hit the four men on both flanks simultaneously. Ward fired from the saddle to disable as many Indians as possible until his rifle was shattered again, while Factor and Payne, still on foot, continued to be engaged by wave after wave of mounted enemies. After the 2 hours, with most of the Apaches killed, all four men managed to collect their horses and retreat to the safety of their company. Their platoon was coming to meet them, having heard the battle. On May 28, 1875, Factor, Ward, and Payne were recommended for the Medal of Honor for their bravery. Despite this honor, after 2 years, Factor left the Scouts and returned to Mexico, dissatisfied with the treatment of the Scouts by the white settlers in southern Texas. He carried with him 2 letters, as did Ward and Payne. The first was a personal letter written by Lieutenant Bullis, attesting to Factor's service and bravery, hoping that it would ease his life as he came into contact with whites still prejudiced against blacks. The other letter, also carried by all 3 men, was from the Secretary of War, James Donald Cameron, on behalf of President Ulysses S. Grant, stating Factor and the others had performed a great service to the United States and should be shown such gracious consideration. After the turn of the century, Pompey Factor returned to Texas. In 1926, he applied for a pension. His military records were lost, and thus he could not initially prove that he had even been in the Army. 2 years later, the Army granted his pension, but Factor, nonetheless, died destitute in a small shack on March 28, 1928, and was buried in the Seminole Indian Scout Cemetery at Brackettville, Texas. His name appears on the Texas Medal of Honor and Seminole tribal rolls. Pompey Factor, not well known to history, is still a legend to those who served with him and those he served.
We hope you enjoyed this segment of Forgotten History. Please click like and subscribe for free. And please stay tuned and be engaged and informed. Send us comments if you have questions or even show ideas, and we will respond to all requests and comments as soon as we can. Thank you.